Welcome to one of my favorite topics, everybody. This is building 90-day roadmaps. I am so passionate and have been for some time now about 90-day roadmaps. I even bought the domain 90dayroadmap.com. It's so important for us to break down these big goals into 90-day targets so that we can further break it down, because it's easier to think about what is the next step to get up the mountain rather than getting up the mountain itself. So 90-day roadmaps will help you gain clarity on the next steps that you need to take in order to move forward, and they will give you an actionable plan, and they will help you effectively follow that plan. It's the old saying, knowledge, right, is nothing without action. And then action is nothing without consistency. So we are going to take the knowledge and we're going to build action and be consistent. And 90-day roadmaps, think of it like going on a road trip. If you're driving from Colorado to New Mexico, then you have to get there at a certain time. What does success look like? How much are you going to spend along the way? What are you driving to get there? Where's going to be the first stop? When do you need gas? What do you need to budget for? What obstacles might get in the way? I think you get the point, right? So let's get into it. First step is to identify what's going to make the biggest impact in your business right now. Putting together what's going to drive your business forward, trying not to think about things that aren't going to be impactful for your business. You do that by asking yourself, will this thing solve a problem, or will it help me make progress towards my ultimate goal? And the way to do that is by assessing the 4 pillars first. And these are the 4 pillars of a property management company in order of importance. First, it all starts with your who, your team. And, well, some of you might be the who and the only who right now, but eventually you will get the who's that you need. The systems, processes, policies, procedures, profit. This has to do with your profit and your revenue, total owner compensation, anything having to do with fees, all of the things related to financials. And then growth. And we know what that is, adding doors. You assess your 4 pillars and just subjectively rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5 and just give it a circle. This will help you identify where you are and what you need to work on. Here's some big picture questions that I'm not going to say that I recommend you ask yourself, but these are big picture questions that you must ask yourself when you're doing this. And relate it back to the road trip. Where do you want to go? All right, I'm in Massachusetts and I want to go to California. Where am I now? Well, we said that, Massachusetts. What does success look like? Success looks like taking a road trip to get to California in 1 week from now, and my budget is X amount of dollars. That could be what success looks like. How are you going to get there? Motorcycle, car. Who do you need? Do you need somebody else with you? Do you need to borrow money from your parents? Who do you need along the way? What potential obstacles lie ahead? Are there any detours that you need to take? Might it snow or ice or something that is going to stop you, prevent you from doing the thing? And we'll look at some property management, some business specific examples as well. So first, where you want to go starts with defining the goal. And when you define a goal, making sure that it is very specific and measurable. So just like when I mentioned we were going to take a road trip from Massachusetts to California, we defined the goal. That's where. Specific and measurable, that's when we're going to get there. Okay, very specific. And clearly define what success looks like. So elaborate, but make it very simple. So think about, in terms of your business, where do you want to go? And let's say that it's implementing a self-showing software. Okay, that's fine, but that's just the start, right? So It could be implementing a self-showing software that my team is actively using by such and such a date, and we reduce our labor by X in X month. So really just being very specific on what that goal looks like for the 90-day goal. In this example, where do you want to go? Implement and automate a minimum viable product. That's what MVP stands for. Minimum viable product maintenance process into your process software. So let's roll with this. We'll use this example instead, okay? Implement and automate MVP maintenance process into the process software. Where are you now? If you're like most, you have no documented process and it's all in your head. Hopefully it's at least all in your head if you don't have a documented process. But everybody's going to be at a different place, and you have to just recognize where that place is, or else you won't be able to properly identify what it's going to take or how long it's going to take to get to the next place. What does success look like? We're a little bit more specific here. An MVP, a minimum viable product maintenance process, means it's documented and it's implemented in the process software and the team is using it. That's what this example looks like. Now, an MVP maintenance process for you may just be documenting the process, and that also might mean identifying your policies, such as what is the minimum reserve or the threshold for when you need owner involvement to solve a maintenance problem. There's policies in place. Does the tenant need to be present for maintenance issues? So be very specific of what that MVP, like, how are you going to get there? This is where we reverse engineer success, and we start working on 30-day milestones, starting with the end in mind. So if we need to complete in 90 days an MVP maintenance process, first look at your other obligations and just make sure that you're not overloaded in any certain area or month to see where your time is, your time management. And then you just backtrack. What are the things that you need to do in the next 30 days to get there? So in this example, documenting the SOPs. Yes, this is important. What are the procedures that need to be? And by the way, to document the SOPs, there's a tool called Scribe that is AI powered, and that will help you significantly reduce the amount of time to document the SOP. Watch process software videos and attend workshops. Now, this may not be you, so don't be reading this as the business owner and be like, oh, geez, well, I don't want to do all those things. Well, don't worry. We're just documenting the things in order to get there. Implement the steps in the process software, and then create the automations. Now, yours does not have to look like this, because we always firmly believe that the process is a 3-step process. I know. Let me say it again and make it a little bit more easy to understand. A process, like creating a process, has to have a process. So there's 3 steps. And number 1 is document the process. So if it's a maintenance process, you have to document it first. Okay, check. Step 2, implement the process. So if you're not already using any kind of process software tool at all, then you have to implement it somewhere, and that would be the next step, implementing it. And then, and only then, after that box is checked, do you start automating the process. Because you can't automate something that you haven't implemented. Too many people want to go from 0 to automation overnight, and I'm just telling you, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. So that's why I mentioned don't necessarily worry too much about creating the automations in that process. There's probably going to be a lot of testing that needs to get done first. Now, the vehicle. So if we're in a road trip, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get there. What's the vehicle? In this example, it's the process software. Who's the who that you need? Well, in this example, operations manager, maintenance coordinator, and you. Now, with your company, it might not be all these 3 people, or it might just be you, depending on your size, or it might just be somebody else, and then they decide who they need. Sometimes the who you need isn't always within your company. might be another resource, might be someone who has connections or previous knowledge. It might be a coach or consultant. There's many different ways to find out the who you need. But once you have the who you need, you see that little figure on the left smiling because they have a lot of better who's that are working for them. And what potential obstacles lie ahead? Distractions. Distractions are the biggest obstacle for any project to fail. And distractions can come in the way, not just with fires that pop up, right? Those could be daily distractions, but it's also you that gets in your own way. And here's an example of how we get in our own way. We may just decide to get distracted and go focus on another project. Maybe we don't like to be held accountable and we just hide when it comes time to report what we're doing and what we're supposed to accomplish. Another way is having a poor mindset because you haven't started the project yet, but then you see the date that's going to be coming up, and now all of a sudden you just stop and you just don't move forward with the project. And you don't do it because you're like, oh geez, now it's just too much. It's that mountain. Okay? So there's a lot of different distractions. Don't let yourself get in your own way, and don't let fires distract you as well. I have another video that is all about could, should, and will, and that's in priority management. But I'm going to go through that with you in this scenario as well, because once you do identify and ask yourself those questions that we just went through, now you need to go through the could, should, and will exercise. What could I do to move this project forward? What's the priority of that? How will that move me forward? So what could I do? Documenting the SOPs. Okay, how important is that? That's a 5 on this scale. Is that something I can delegate? Yes, it is. So it's going through this exercise to identify those aspects. If you haven't went through the priority management video, you might want to pause this video right now and go watch that video where I do explain further exactly the could, should, and will exercise and how important that is and how to implement it. So the could, should, and will, this will help break down the weekly plan. Let's relate it back to the road trip. You're on a road trip and let's say you're going to take your sweet time to get there. Massachusetts to California, you're going to stop in 10 places and stay 6 nights in each place, so it's going to take a while. So in the monthly part of it, right, you're like, what do I need to do this month? And now this is the weekly aspect. So you pull out your plan 30 minutes on a Sunday night and you're like, okay, what does this week look like? And what are the things that I could do? How important are those to get me towards my goal? Scale from 1 to 5. And is it something I can delegate? And then you go down, what should I delegate? If so, to who and when, being clear. When do I need that done by? And then the what will I do, and then when as well. And then guess what you do after that? You put it in your calendar, because if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. I just pictured everybody saying that with me. It doesn't exist. Okay, moving on. Now the daily could, should, and will. What could I do on today to move that forward? What should I delegate? What will I do? Again, priority management video that will give you more context to this exercise. And then once you have that, you have to block the time, because if it's not in your calendar, it exists. Exactly. Protecting your time, you have to block that focus time in order to get it done. And I practice what I preach. When I have a project, like for example, getting certain videos recorded for our educational content, I block that time in my calendar and I do it ahead of time. If we are rolling out a group coaching program, there's a lot of things that need to get done and we want it to be successful. So in order to do that, go through this exercise and then we block out that time in order for it to get done. And of course, set your rules of reactiveness, because in order to be successful in achieving your goals, you can't get distracted. But there's going to be not just internal conflict with yourself, but there's going to be external conflict that tries to get you off task. This is an example of what protecting your time and establishing boundaries looks like When I used to prospect for real estate sales and property management, this was something like over a decade ago, I would spend 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. just calling expireds, canceled, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, all of the people who hated realtors and property managers. And I had this sign on my door, and it was closed during that time. Everybody knew what I was doing behind that door. That could be interpreted in a couple different ways, but I was on the phone. But everybody knew what I was doing behind that door. I was very clear about it, and I was committed to the result. And guess what happened? Everybody else around me was committed to that result too. They were supportive, and they were thankful that I communicated with them in an effective way. Now, if you follow these steps in this video, you will be able to set and achieve your goals in 90 Day Road. See you on the next video.